Hi, welcome back to FutureFast. And today we have Anup Pai with us. And before I introduce Anup Pai to those of you who are seeing him for the first time, let me give a quick introduction to FutureFast, which is a platform, if you will, to bring people who are impacting on future and who are contributing, and also to talk to people to get their perspective on future and what can we do to prepare with, and how it could potentially help us. So here we go, and enjoy the ride as we go with Anup Pai. And Anup Pai is a serial entrepreneur, uh, largely identified in the fintech space as an entrepreneur, but his investment spoils spreads across pretty much everything, and we'll hear from Anup about what are the latest investment exploits, so to speak. And he's also been biggest face. That's why I said those of you who have still are first time discovering Anup Pai, he's become pretty much the face of ONDC
No.
in India. So Anup, welcome aboard, and let's start with your journey.
Thanks, Nanju. Thanks for having me. I think my journey as an entrepreneur started in 2006, which is when you and I first met. But before that, my journey in life so far has been setting up systems for banks all over the world. Banks are in the business of transmitting money into the economy, into society, as we all know. So the central banks and the governments create the money, and the banks are in the business of transmitting it into society. We built. I was part of building these systems for banks, not just in India but also across the world. The Middle East, Southeast Asia, Australia, Africa, Europe, and so on. In a centralizing, globalizing world, banks played a very important role, and we built these global systems or centralized large compute infrastructures called core banking, which is the core of global banking. And since then, I've also been involved in a venture, which is when you and I first met, which is in aggregating information from various systems within the bank and transmitting it to the central banks, because central banks are finally the nerve center of how the policies that govern the economy and the behavior of every individual is driven. So that's my journey. I'm a banking technologist who's seen the creation of this nerve center of financialization of the economy, and an entrepreneur. As this journey progressed in 2016, when on the day demonetization happened, and the acceleration of the digital centralized economy went supernova with UPI and the adoption of UPI and everything we've seen since then. I came up with this vision of the future vision of pyramids to circles.
I want to stop you there.
Yeah,
What you skipped is that you raised multiple rounds of investments, and then
that's not an achievement in my opinion.
no. That's your
That I'm
part of
proud
your
of.
journey. That's part of your journey, and
Yeah.
you exited it. And post that exit is where you you
It's
got to the point of coming out of having been an insider, that you
I'm
sort
still an insider. Anyway.
you are an insider, but you're not an insider of a pyramid world, right? Not anymore.
That's correct. I mean, we'll explain the whole future version of pyramids to circles. But yeah, I mean, the journey's been quite stellar from the point of view of tier one VCs, Sequoia Capital, IDG Ventures, partnering with us on our journey to create this governance, risk, and compliance platform for banks, which we call Fintellix. Fintellix still exists in a new avatar, backed with a private equity firm. We also then sold the company to a Nasdaq listed company, worked in integrating India and India operations and technology operations into this data analytics company called Verisk. All spectacular from an experience perspective. And yeah, I mean, having lived an entire life and continuing to live a life in the financial world, how can those best practices of the construction of a financial economy, right? I mean, how can it be more decentralized? How can it be more community centered rather than centered around boardrooms in Bombay or in New York or in Tokyo or in Shanghai? Has been the current journey that I think uh, that I'm on, right?
Yeah, well, there is still a small pace before between these two, which is where you actually aggressively got started investing.
Yeah,
That is, I think, I don't know what, more
I'm
than
still
two
in that
dozen
period
companies.
right now, actually.
Yeah, but that part of the life is where you would invest in a 10-minute conversation, and you were the first investor, right, in most of your investments.
All my investments to date, which I started in 2017, have been where I've been the first check, and typically on paper ideas or ideas that are even just discussed for the first time, right? I mean, where the team is just still brainstorming what needs to be done, is when I typically make an entry and kind of coagulate that idea by giving money to coagulate that idea and make it something solid and something that can be shaped from there on. So yeah, I mean, it broadly started off with the whole decentralized pyramids to circles vision. If you believe that all the large value creating enterprises, corporates, aka corporates, are essentially hierarchical models, where there is a set of shareholders, and then there's executive management, and then there is a hierarchical structure which could be product based or region based, and then everybody in the hierarchy is answerable to the chain up the top of the pyramid, to a more egalitarian, horizontal, circular model where there is a center, but the center can be shifting and the circle can be more value adding for everybody in that circle, where everybody has access to that information, and it's not abstracted through layers in the pyramid. Was what got me started with my investment thesis. And starting with the internet itself, the internet was meant to be a worldwide web, which was available uniformly, and every resource, every compute resource anywhere in the internet could find any other node seamlessly. To the pyramidical internet that we have, where we have the FANG companies that control broad swaths of the internet. So to decentralize the internet, I mean, and that is usually through the acquisition of data from the nodes, and then kind of using the data to drive the behavior of the nodes. To trying to decentralize it, my first check was in a company called Trillbit, where we are trying to use sound. So sound has got physical limitations. It doesn't travel beyond. Let's say if I'm speaking, my maid in the next room can hear, but my neighbor can't hear me, right? Because there are walls that separate. So how can we use sound to be able to create a decentralized internet, right? How can we create sound to create private networks that are all related? I mean, again, the circles, right? Because sound goes in a circle. I mean, if I'm standing in the center without not separated by walls, my voice can travel all around me. And so Trillbit became an investment in a protocol for authenticating device to device using ultrasound. And there are a lot of applications. Queue busting is one of the key applications. Passwordless authentication is another. Secure authentication is another. So that happened to be my first technology investment, first investment. And then eventually I think we need to see applications of technology in real world, and that too not just in the cities but in small villages. How can small villages benefit from technology, which is where I became an investor in Tenacious Bee Collective, which is a fintech and art initiative to be able to create products, of the beehive in the village, get urban consumers connected to the rural producers using a digital network and using social media and other means to connect. And then on the financial technology perspective, we've got this whole neobank concept that is coming up. Neobanks are essentially digital entities that can serve as a bank for you and me, to their consumers. It's still limited. Neobanks are limited by the amount of money that neobanks are able to raise and build technologies for themselves. How can anybody create a neobank, right? Without a technology barrier, without a capital barrier, as long as you have a trust of your community, can you be a neobank for your community? And so those are embedded finance models that we started exploring with a company called Finbox. All of these are now mature entities. Tenaciously is quite mature, has raised other investor money. Finbox is also mature. It's raised other investors' money. Trilbit has also raised other investors' money, and they've also become known in their fields as trailblazers in their fields, and many other such things. I mean, we worked on local media initiatives in Pune, working with Facebook, groups to be able to convert them into commerce groups, do peer-to-peer commerce within working within college campuses to enable students to build peer-to-peer use cases, commerce use cases. A number of these different things have happened, and these are all experimental to begin with. I mean, 2016, 2017, if you talked about data and data sovereignty, people really laughed at you. They said, it's not really necessary, it's not important. I mean, nobody really cares for data. I mean, to now in 2023, it is something that is seen as as important to freedom and liberty as your ability to own a house and be able to stop robbers from entering your house. Right? It's almost seen as important as that, right? Data sovereignty and data use in general, right? And we've also seen tokenization, come and go. We've seen the various financial use cases and NFT use cases and so on come and go. The technologies have evolved quite a bit. So yeah, as the future is coming at us fast, I think it's a wonderful time, and 2023 I think is a wonderful time to move fast towards that future, and that's beckoning.
So, before you get down to what you're busy with now, what are the other things? One is that you're investing, and what are the other things that keeps you busy apart from eSamudaay? So, eSamudaay, I thought we'll talk about it
We'll talk
with
about
little more
eSamudaay.
time. Yeah.
So I think this evangelizing this concept of Swaraj in the digital age, right? Self-rule, right, in the digital age, is something that let's say, fundamentally, I spend all of my time doing just that, right? And everything else is a vehicle to create use cases, create proof points that this is an important topic. Why is it an important topic? I guess for me it is important because data and digital, we already live a lot of our lives on digital interfaces in the digital world, right? You and me, but the whole of the human population will have a large, impact. I mean, digital will have a large impact on our lives. It's important to be able to interact with that digital world on our terms rather than terms set outside by unknown parties. And that's very, very important from my perspective, because I don't trust corporate entities and profit seeking entities, especially those that claim to be saving the world, right? I mean, all these Silicon Valley companies that have this goody goody image about themselves, but really what they're doing is creating this massive dependence on themselves, on of the entire world, which I think is creating too much fragility. Um, uh, some of my language comes off looking very patriotic or nationalistic about India, but there is logic to it that India as using whatever forces, we need to be able to stand up. I use
So,
those
but
methods.
what are the things that you're busy with driving these things, right? I think one there was another podcast. I think yesterday, or day before yesterday, India monitoring, right? So,
India,
what is it? India
US India
monitoring,
monitor, yeah.
US India
Yeah,
monitor.
yeah.
So, what are the things that you're doing towards this? Some
So,
groups, some initiatives.
so the decentralization initiative, which started around 2008 with Occupy Wall Street and other things that came to brought to the fore that the financial system was not working. The current financial system was not working to the benefit of the larger populations. And the whole Bitcoin, Satoshi paper, 2009, all of that, one group of people took it to um, propagate the existing winner takes all kind of model, right? Which showed up in cryptocurrencies, the ICO boom, the Ponzi's that ran, and so on. I've been fortunate to be connected with a bunch of people that are environmentalists, society lovers, not socialists, right? And others, and across the world. It's not just India. My travels have taken me to the Middle East, including to Saudi Arabia, including to Iran, Europe, US, Southeast Asia, wherever, Africa. So I've been fortunate to be part of a narrative which is, how can we use these technologies for greater good? How can we use these technologies for civilizational benefits rather than corporate benefits or money? Purely measuring everything in the form of money, right?
Or
Yeah.
rather just make few people wealthy.
Yeah, so the winner takes all model, right? So this is an evolving narrative. There is, when I say, forget evolving. This is a narrative that we are very clear that that should be the future. But we are up against the people who want to retain the status quo, right? Which is all the large money interests, and
So
also
in
the
this,
skeptics, right? Right?
but in this journey, so what's the goal? What is it that you want to achieve towards this aspect? I mean, and what do you think would be the uh, point or a milestone where you think that there is something that you have personally done substantially?
So I think the milestone's already been reached, right? While I didn't have anything to do with the launching of ONDC, for something like that to come on the India stack, right? India stack is obviously something that has already been part of development for a long time on the India's banking system and so on. I
No,
think
that is still a little distant from an adoption point of view. But for you personally, what is a goal that you have from addressing all these things? Apart from, of course, I guess we will. Uh, I know I'm
we'll
trying to
talk
keep
about
myself away
eSamudaay.
from talking about it.
So I essentially, my goal right now is to get the acknowledgement that the distributed digital economy, right, is a better way to implement digital rather than the platform way of implementing digital, right? That acknowledgement that that is a more efficient, more sustainable way to implement digital solutions on the free internet, where everybody accesses these digital services on their terms, versus some large corporate entity putting their terms and saying, "Hey, trust me," right? That point, and we are making great headway, right? We've got multiple ways of saying the same language, because it's the mental models that most people have got. Over the last 25 years, we've been kind of lulled to believe that there will be some savior outside that will come and do that magic, wave a magic wand, and everything will be all right, right? So to the point that we can take action, right? So and each one of us can take that action, and there's things to be done, things that we can take control and join. So that will be one key milestone, and after that, actions need to be coordinated and all of that, which is where eSamudaay comes in as a yeah.
That we'll talk about. So, who are the people who have been influencing you, directly, inadvertently, that you think they have shaped you to the way you think today and the things that you are doing today?
So I think two people that don't live today but have influenced a lot of this thinking is Alvin and Heidi Toffler. The three books, obviously Third Wave and Power Shift. Excellent research, excellent way of articulating the waves of change that bring the future to us. Right, the future is already here. We don't recognize it. And it's moving fast at you. Right, those are the things that I mean. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of recognizing these patterns. Right. So, and then beyond that, I think my own network of people who come from my engineering college, Suratkal. Every one of them. I mean, we have a favorite, pastime in our Suratkal batch, which is future gazing, right? So we spend a lot of our time when we meet. We meet irregularly but quite frequently. It's all about so because we see the world from the pre-internet as well, right? And then the whole thing we've taken advantage of and been part of this whole journey. Many of us have been part of implementing a number of things. So that information network, that bunch of people, and then a few thinkers that I've kind of accumulated as friends over the years, you included, have started as sort of shaped uh, a kind of a belief that something's changing, right? Something will change, right? The past will not. The future is not just not going to be an extrapolation of the past. There is a inflection point that is happening today. The internet is playing a big role. All of that, I think, leads me to putting on my investor hat. I mean, obviously, risk taking is part of that whole entrepreneur investor hat, because the future is not going to come just like that. You need to actually play a part, right? So
Well, or you just float with it and things will anyway happen. There are
that's
many
not me.
people who
That's
are
not
just
you.
going
That's
with
not us, right? I mean, yeah. I
it.
mean,
Correct. So, what are you reading now? What are you reading now that is in this direction?
so I've stopped reading anything new
Or
other than
listening to books?
no. I don't.
Uh,
I don't listen. I only read. So I've recently started rereading the Third Wave, right? I mean, yeah. So
what about podcasts?
I don't. I mean, unless somebody sends it to me on a WhatsApp, I don't listen to anything, right? I mean, somebody says, "Tumko ye sunna hai," then I will read. It's usually
so,
recommendation, the web.
so what do you recommend? I mean, so of course you named few books for sure, but apart from that, what would you recommend to our listeners or audience? Books, podcasts, or where you've been supporting or participating as
So I think at the core of this, what I recommend to everybody is forget reading and everything. Discover who you are and what your purpose is, what your visions are, what your wishes are. Right? Don't lead somebody else's life. Right? I mean, who you are, what you want, nija, your nija, your truth. Right? I mean, and use whatever means that you can to be able to get that unvarnished self. Right? Because then you will find that information to guide you along your path, right? I mean, and a lot of people think that I'm a saffron wearing man, because I mean, look, I mean,
well? Oh, so
so
you're now identified with right wingers, is
no, yeah,
it?
okay, I mean, the labels, right? I mean, that's what. So, but Atmanirbhar. right? When it
Oh,
first
okay.
came,
In that context,
yeah,
okay.
when it came on May 12th, 2020, right? On May 12th, 2020, the term came, right? Atmanirbhar. And the minute I heard that term, right, I was like, wow, this is exactly what we need, right? This is decentralization. This is the core spirit of decentralization, right? I mean, you're like basically saying, I mean, and there are many people who are saying, oh, the government has given up now. They're asking us to take care of ourselves, this, that, and all of that, right? But I mean, the government is not giving up. I mean, government is government. I mean, they'll do whatever they'll do when they do, and they'll whatever, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that you, right, have to be Atmanirbhar, or it's better off for you to be dependent on your own soul and your purpose and your network and so on, right? Uh, I essentially feel that there's obviously the policy implementation and what we see on the ground and so on. But I think, and obviously some of it is showing up as jingoism and nationalism and vagera vagera. But if you peel all of that and say Atmanirbhar ko we can really adopt, right? I mean, and we can and entrepreneur nation, I mean, the entrepreneurship and startup, digital India, and all of those things, if we can adopt, and if we go bottom up, saying this is how we will implement some of these, uh, right wingers, I mean, all of us might be happy. I mean, right wing, left wing, no wing,
Right.
no wings.
Right. Well, Anup, thank you. And uh, this is a idea was to give a small view to Anup Pai's world to the people and Anup's journey to the people. So we'll come back soon to talk about eSamudaay and the larger play that is evolving here and how you see things. So please come back again to follow on further on that. And thank you once again. And we'll also share Anup's recommendations and Anup's social handles who want to follow. Is very active online as well.
Thank you so
Keep
much, Nanju.
following.
Yeah. And little bit about FutureFast and what you want to do with it before we end, I guess.
Oh, well, yeah, again, this is to bring people like Anup who who see things changing differently than the majority, and also not just seeing things, but also working towards things and being a player, not just going for the ride, but trying to ride the wave as such. So, and idea is that the rest of us could see and probably also uh, draw some more courage to ride the wave than we float around, right?
Cool. So thank you so much, Nanju.
Thanks, Anu.
Yeah.
Thank you again.